All right. This project, this one, I'm not really giving example code for this. This one's going to take some planning for doing rock, paper, scissors. You guys will have to have certain requirements that you're implementing. And you guys don't actually have to have the words rock, paper, and scissors. You could create something else. But basically, since we're using three, you can do three at a minimum, but each one has to be able to beat something else so that it's balanced. You can't just, if I was doing rock, paper, scissors, fire, and fire destroys everything, then that's not really a balanced game. So what I want you guys to do is that you guys are basically creating your own version of rock, paper, scissors, okay, where one thing is beating the other, and rock beats scissors, but then scissors beats paper, and then paper beats rock. So it's very circular. If you do more than three, you just have to be careful about your balance. Usually odd numbers work a lot better than even numbers, but it can be done. Okay, so for doing this, you're going to actually have to, instead of doing ints, this needs to be with strings. Okay, this with strings. So you're going to have to check if it is equal by the case and its spelling, okay? So they will type, whatever, rock, paper, scissors, and the computer is going to randomly generate. Now this will be from an array. So you'll have an array that's going to have three items in it, three elements at a minimum, but it could be, something else. You could replace, rock, paper, scissors with something else. If you want to do like Big Bang Theory, rock, paper, scissors, lizard, Spock, you could do that. I don't care. I'm looking more for how you're designing the game. Your code do you have a core game code that's inside a loop? Do you have a loop for the game to be able to start completely over? I'm looking at you using if statements, if else statements, switch statements. I would suggest you spend some time in tutorials point looking at that, which would be great for using on strings. Now where is switch statements? Decision making. Yep. And we have a switch statement. Okay. So you could check that out there and see what that looks like. Basically, you have an expression or something, a variable that you're checking against several different cases, and this is just what it has to equal. So that means that you can't really have is it greater than this and less than this? Is this number 1? Is this number 2? Is this number 3? We will be getting into those soon because it's kind of like an if-then statement, but it can be used for really locking in the answers. Okay, so that would be fun to do for you guys' rock, paper, scissors game. So I'm adding it in there. You are going to be using an array just to hold the possible choices that the computer can pick. Okay, you are going to implement a scorekeeping variable that's going to give feedback of the score to the player. So if they've won 3 times in a row, I'd like the player to know that they won 3 times in a row. Okay, so these are your requirements for rock, paper, scissors. I'm giving you a lot of leeway because I want you guys to come up with unique ideas, but there is going to be, so all the code that you have right now you could basically do other than doing some research on switch statements. But I want you to design this game. So you have to plan on what you want to actually happen at the start when you start playing the game and the computer has its choice and the player decides what their choice is going to be, what that would look like, what you want the user to see, so you can design that in code. Okay? So pay attention to the design. Pay attention to where you're initializing and declaring variables so that if you're choosing to use them again, that you can. When you have your debug lines, so printing out system.out.println and finding out what was the random number in your number guessing game, you can do the same thing with rock, paper, scissors to double check your code as you're working through the steps. Okay? When you turn that into me, it's fine if you want to have that code as you're trying to demo, but I don't want you to keep it in there. I don't want you to get used to that habit of that. So if you want to submit to me after you've already commented out, I don't want you to delete it. I want you to comment out the debug lines. That's fine. Okay. But that's going to be the first thing that I'm going to ask you if you're like, well, I'm not sure what to do, to make this work because I can't find where the issue is. I'm going to tell you that you need to start putting debug lines in. Any equations that you have, you need to double check with some system.out.println to find out if the equation was done correctly. Maybe you forgot some parentheses and your order of operations are off. So that's where you need to start kind of building in double checks as you're working on the code to make it easier for you to test, and then you're going to comment it out when you are getting ready to actually submit stuff. Okay? All right. Have fun.